everybody. Just going to give everybody a few minutes to get settled in. Okay. Hi, everybody. It's really good to be here with all of you today. I'm going to be tackling one of the less popular topics when it comes to SaaS. I'm going to be tackling the human component and the need for humans in the work that we do. Can I just ask the team, are the slides working? Are they moving? Because my clicker isn't. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So how I'm going to be tackling this topic is I'm going to be talking about the myths that we as a company encounter almost on a daily basis when we are working with product companies. We function as a customer success, as a service company for SaaS companies, and naturally we deal with their clients. So we're dealing with very, very precious assets. And one of the key conversations that we're constantly having with our partners is, how do you find that critical, important balance between humans and the product? And what I've decided to do is, and how I've decided to structure this talk today is, I'm going to be talking about the three common things, which are myths in that they're seen as one big global holistic, this is how the world is, but there's actually different lenses that need to be taken on these things, and I want us to have a bit of a conversation about it. So, before I start on the actual myths, I want to share a little bit of a story. I used to be a downhill mountain biker. I'm originally from South Africa. I came and I lived here in Ireland for 9 years, built a number of different businesses here, and became a mountain biker in the process. And one of the things that I loved about mountain biking was it taught me about SaaS. It taught me about building product businesses. I learned a lot of lessons when I was chasing down those mountains at crazy, crazy speeds. In the last year, we've expanded our business into the US, and unfortunately, I'm in Texas, and Texas is very flat. There are no hills for me to ride down. And so when I got there, I decided to pivot a little bit into boxing and to take that up as my new sport, because I was like, okay, boxing can definitely teach me about product and product businesses, but I decided pretty much about 6 months ago, boxing wasn't quite for me, and so I've pivoted into something else, and that's parkour. I don't know if any of you guys know parkour, but it's the people who go and run up the buildings, jump off the buildings, and then a little bit of gymnastics is thrown into it as well. And so I've started doing that, and the interesting thing is it's taken me right back to the fundamentals of what does it take to build a product business, a really good product business, but with a very, very big human component to it. And some of the key things that you learn is that inner core strength is everything. You can't go and do any of those crazy, crazy things that are needed unless you have absolute inner core stability. And so coming back to that core principle of inner core strength when I'm doing sport, it's highly, highly applicable to any product business, and particularly scaling a product company. So, jumping into the first myth that we encounter on a daily basis. Good usability requires zero deployment. There's this common thought and thread in product companies and in SaaS companies that if the product is brilliant, I don't need to deploy this product. I don't need to implement this product. It is one of the biggest myths that you could ever possibly be building your business on. No matter how good your product is, you need to realize that there is a human being on the other end of that product, and you are disrupting their workflow. So no matter how good your product is, your product will never solve the disruption that it's causing. And that's real. And particularly in a B2B environment where you're dealing with SaaS enterprise, it is particularly relevant there. But it definitely cascades down to consumer software used in a business environment as well. If you're introducing a new product, generally companies and teams are introducing new products for a number of different reasons. It's either for efficiency, it's either for automation, or it's for improvement of an existing process that's very, very broken. And that means that the adoption of your software is going to change how they work. But human nature, because of the way our brains are wired, wants to do more of what it did before because it's comfortable there. And so this is a myth that product companies are building themselves on. You need a human to manage that workflow disruption. So the human comes in many forms. It comes in the form of support. It comes in the form of customer success. It comes in the form of chatbots and support applications inside your actual product. But the reality is that it needs a human touch because a human understands disruption. Technology doesn't understand disruption. So, moving on to myth number 2. The future is about automation. Now, this is true. The future is about automation. But it's a myth when applied to product because product in an automated format doesn't mean that I don't need a human with that automation. And that's the key piece where we really, really find ourselves having to challenge the businesses that we're working with in that there's a common thread of thinking that is very much fueled by VCs wanting to get metrics and numbers that if you automate, you don't need as many humans. No. Yes, you need to automate and you need to make your product as efficient as it possibly can be. But the reality is that what it's doing is it's not eliminating the human. It is bringing a human into a better position to serve a customer better. That's the key thing. And so instead of only automating, and making the product a very, very cold experience, coming back to that principle of understanding, I am causing disruption. I need to create a human touch, to create a human experience. I need to therefore understand that the future is about automation, but it's automation that enables me to create a better human experience. Then, moving on to myth number 3, scaling a product business is about hiring less people. So as you guys can see, all 3 of these myths are in many ways interrelated. Yes, scaling a product business is about keeping the team as efficient as possible and scaling through the product. But the reality is that once you've gained product market fit, once you've gained this elusive traction that everybody talks about, your next biggest problem that you are going to face is retention, hands down. And one of the things that we find with companies is that because retention wasn't dealt with and because churn wasn't taken seriously in the early days, it becomes a much, much bigger problem when you're hitting that very, very important growth curve. And so one of the things that I really want to challenge and that I want to put out there is start taking it seriously from day one. Don't let churn become a problem that you deal with down the road. Deal with it from day one. And how you do that most effectively is by creating a human experience where a customer genuinely, no matter how small, wants to engage with your company and with your product. Because the experience that you offer them holistically is a really, really good one. It's one where they walk away from your company going, wow, that company went above and beyond to meet my needs, to understand what I'm going through because I'm implementing the product. And so if you look at these 3 myths, if we quickly go over them again, good usability requires zero deployment. The future is about automation. And scaling a product business is about hiring less people. The one common thread there is that product companies, and very much the market that we move in, has this either-or mentality. It's either product or it's a service business. It's either this or it's that. And that's what, as a SaaS company, you really, really need to rethink. Because it's a meshing of those 2 together. It's about bringing the best humans to create the best experience, built in with your product and in its best automated format that creates the ultimate experience for your customer, that solves your churn problem and leads to not only retention, but then expansion as well. It's that key mix. And the reason why this is so important is if we forget about our product for a few minutes, and we literally just put the product to the side, and we think about the reality of the workplace that people are having to work in and move in. Currently, an average user at their desk every single day is having to deal with anything between 18 to 30 applications that they're jumping between. Okay? And naturally, products like Slack and these other communication tools are trying to integrate that, and there's even some really, really interesting companies here that are solving that problem, where we're trying to integrate that. But the reality is, it is becoming more and more challenging. People are having to constantly fragment their thinking to get to a place of, this is the work I'm doing. And so the problem that we're talking about here is that we're moving into a future that is very, very chaotic. And when people see and sense chaos, they tend to back off and go, hang on a minute, this doesn't feel good. I don't like chaos, I want order. But the reality is that chaos, if you actually look down at the theory of chaos, it's simply a highly environment that is highly in motion. It's constantly moving, it's constantly changing. And it's literally small changes that are happening all the time. That is our future. That is what we're living in work right now. And so if you put yourself into the shoes of the user who's using your software, that's their reality. Things are constantly changing around them. And that, more than your product, is what you're actually going to have to manage and deal with in order to get your product to a place of success. And so one of the other interesting things that we're starting to see emerging in SaaS, and what SaaS companies are really having to deal with, is the change in organization, where organizations are moving from a departmental view, so legal, HR, marketing, that type of segmentation, to where products in the market are forcing organizations to place the client at the center. And this seems like very obvious. People are like, well, of course the client is everything about the business. But if you think about how businesses are structured, we don't really think about that. We give this lip service, but we don't really actually tackle the client like this. We don't place the client at the center of absolutely everything inside business. We're still very much in that siloed departmental thinking. And the reality is that SaaS products still serve that departmental thinking. And so more and more, what you're starting to see SaaS moving away from is HR tools, marketing tools, all of these departmental tools, towards tools that actually serve organizations across all of those departments, which more and more is driving very customer-centric thinking. Okay? And therefore, customer success and onboarding and everything that touches the customer along that customer journey life cycle is becoming more and more important because of this change that's happening in work and inside organizations. And the other interesting thing that's starting to emerge very strongly in the market is we're not only moving towards very client-centric organizations, but we're moving towards organizations where they are hiring people based on how those people's skill sets matches the client. Okay? It's, this is my client, can I serve them with the people on my team? And so what you're starting to see inside SaaS is that their entire team is going to have to become customer-centric in its thinking. That's the key thing. That's the key differentiator. And so if I'm just to wrap this all up and go over what we're going over here is, I want to challenge us to think about product companies not as product companies that stand alone and scale on their own, but product companies that really need to start building service units inside themselves, to start really servicing their customers to solve the churn and retention problem way earlier inside the life cycle than down the life cycle once you've gained that traction. It's a key thing. It's something that you need to start driving from day one rather than having to only deal with it when you hit a 5 million ARR level or even above that. So, over to you guys. I know that there's an opportunity for questions. Are there any questions from the audience? We've got about 5 minutes left. Yes. Let me try and get a mic. Guys, is there a mic? There we go.
what type of skill set would you look for in hiring a customer success staff or a project staff? Is it sales, is it technical, or what type of mix is important?
It's a very hard question to answer from a blanket perspective because it's very, very industry dependent. But what I can say from having worked across multiple industries in this area, there's four key skill sets that completely differentiate the really, really high-performing customer success people from those who don't. The first essential skill set is a technical savviness that goes beyond product understanding, okay? You need to understand how an ecosystem is built. It's not about a singular product. It's about the ecosystem that that product lives in. So that's a very core thing that's quite big, because people think, okay, if they understand my product, it's enough. It's not enough. The second thing is they need to have a teaching ability. They need to be able to take somebody from A to B to C. Key thing, they need to understand change management. So that comes back to that piece about what is the disruption that I'm causing and what am I going to do about it? And then the fourth thing is they need to very, very clearly be able to actually take somebody's confusion, okay, and this is related to the teaching skill, but it's very, very different, and minimize that. So there's almost like a care element there that's really, really important. Yeah. So any other questions? Yes.
Is it on? Yo, it is.
Yes, there we go.
When you talk to different SaaS companies, where are you finding them in terms of maturity, thinking in this way about, you know, having a much more user-centric customer product and onboarding?
Yeah. So in conversations with SaaS, I can definitely say that going back 18 months ago, the thinking was definitely, I'm a growing SaaS company. Until I hit 10 million in ARR, this isn't a problem. I don't need to deal with it. I just need to focus on growth, and I just need to increase my net new every single month. More and more, there's a very big shift, because what's starting to happen now, and this is interestingly actually being driven by VCs, is that VCs are looking at the problems that they're having to deal with when companies get to 10 million ARR, and they're going, this is a problem we shouldn't be dealing with because we haven't addressed it. So in many ways, VCs are taking responsibility for this, and they are going, hang on a minute, we need to take a re-look at this. And so they're almost starting to really guide companies in a direction of thinking customer success much, much earlier. Where the problem really starts becoming obvious is at the 10 million mark, because that's where churn really, really starts becoming a very serious thing. Yeah, good. Any other questions? We've got about 2 minutes left. Good. Excellent. Thank you so much, guys. Hope you have a good rest of the day.